This is ADAWAN with Lions Roar, 12 Tribes. I'm going to walk you through the scriptures concerning who is nothing and who are something. So first, let's go to the who are something. And this is concerning the word of the Most High, who he claims as his people. And his people are the 12 tribes of Israel. Let's first start out with Amos chapter 3, verse 1. Amos 3 and 1, it says, "Hear this word that the Most High has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquity." So he's telling us that he possessed this family, the family called Yasharallah, who the world calls Israel. He possessed this family. And he says, only you have I known of all the families of the earth. So there's other families on the earth. So this goes into the nations. There's actually 18 nations who exist on this earth today. The Israelite family is one of those nations. So can two walk together except they be agreed? So can we even walk with the Most High? If he's going to punish us for all our iniquities, that means that we are not walking with the Most High. If he's going to punish us for our iniquities, that means that we got in trouble and something happened to us. So let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 27, and let's find out why we were punished. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 27, it reads, "And the anger of the Most High was kindled against this land." What land? Jerusalem. "To bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book." What happened? We broke the law, statutes, and commandments. "And the Most High rooted them out of their land in anger." So he wasn't really mad at the land, he was mad at us. "And in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land as it is this day." So we've been cast into other lands, to the four corners of the earth as it is this day. We broke the law, statutes, and commandments, and we were punished because of that. Deuteronomy 29:29, "The secret things belong unto the Most High, our power, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law." So what people is he talking about? What children? This is the family that we read about in Amos 3 and 3, the 12 tribes of Israel. So he's specifically talking about a people, and that people are the children of Israel. So if we were punished, there were nations. I mentioned the 18 nations. 17 of those nations we were scattered to. Which of those 17 nations are the prominent nations that took us into captivity? All right, let's go to Psalms chapter 83. This is why you know the Bible is not a myth. It's all this exists this day. Psalms 83. And let's go to Psalms 83, verse 4. Psalms 83, verse 4. "They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation." Who wants to cut us off from being a nation? "That the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom." Edom is a nation. "And the Ishmaelites," who are the Arabs, they're a nation. Edom is the Caucasian nation. "Of Moab," who are the Chinese nation. "And the Hagarenes of the East Indian nation." Some would say the cousins of the Ishmaelites. "Gebal and Ammon," the Japanese. "And Amalek," that's a branch off of the Edomites, the so-called Jewish people today. Because they're not Jews, they're not Judeans. They call themselves Jewish because they converted. "The Philistines," which are Africans, "with the inhabitants of Tyre," these are Africans. "Ashur also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot, Selah." So all these listed names are the prominent nations that took us into captivity. Every single one of them. All right. So are these people something or are they nothing? Let's find out. Are they something or are they nothing? Let's go to 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra in the Apocrypha. And let's go to chapter 6. And let's go to verse 54. 2 Ezra 6 and 54. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also, whom thou hast chosen. So out of all the creatures and Adam, the Most High Spirit is in every one of his living organisms. But he chose a certain people out of all. All this have I spoken before thee, O power, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Our sakes. As for the other people, so there are other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing. And we read who these people are in Psalms 83. But be like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So they are nothing. See that? They are nothing. They're like spit. The Most High looks at them as if they are spit. Nothing. 57. And now, O power, behold, these heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing. So he's saying all these heathen are nothing, have begun to be lords over us because we were scattered to the nations. They are lords over us with their policies, with their constitutions, with their decrees. And to devour us, they devour us how? With their education, with their medicines, with their religions, with their science. But we thy people, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, Amos 3 and 3 again, we are the firstborn, the children of Israel, thy only begotten, see that? And thy fervent lover are given into their hands. So we were given into what hands? Psalms 83. The Edomites, the Ishmaelites, the Hagarenes, the Moabites, the Ammonites, all those people we were given into their hands. For what? Servants. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance? We don't have Jerusalem. We don't have our law, statutes, commandments. We don't know who we are. Why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? They don't want to acknowledge who we are. How long shall this endure? How long shall this endure? So he's talking to the children of Israel. So he's talking to the Most High regarding the children of Israel. How long will we be in this state of mind? How long will we be destroyed? But he calls the other people nothing. So let's go to Isaiah, the book of Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 40. Now let's go to verse 15. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15. And it reads, Behold, the nations, plural, are as a drop of a bucket, and are counted as the small dust of the balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing. So he's saying all the nations are as a drop of a bucket. He's saying the same thing that Ezra said. See that? Ezra's got it from Isaiah. And are counted as the small dust of a balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing. And Lebanon is not sufficient to burn, nor the beast thereof sufficient for a burnt offering. All nations, look at this one, all nations before him are as nothing, and they are counted to him less than nothing and vanity. Less than nothing is minus 0, 0. Can you get less than a minus 0? So he's saying all the people of Psalms 83 are minus 0. All these people dwelling amongst us, minus 0. How about that? They're nothing. But the Most High said to what? Be at peace with all men. But he's telling us these people are less than nothing. Let me show you something real quick. Let's go to the Watchtower online library. And they changed the wording on this whole scripture in the book of Isaiah, right? Let's go to Isaiah chapter 40. And let's look at the Watchtower online library Bible. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15. Look at how they changed the wording. It reads, Look, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and as the film of dust on the scales, they are regarded. How are they regarded? Hold on, let me see that again. It says, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and as the film of dust on the scales, they are regarded. No, they're not. They're not regarded. Look, he lifts up the islands like fine dust. Even Lebanon is not sufficient to keep a fire burning, and its wild animals are not sufficient for a burnt offering. All the nations are as something, but in Isaiah chapter 40, it says they are nothing. Why did they change all the nations are as something? See that? Because the nations know they have no opportunity to get into the kingdom unless they follow Israel. All the nations are as something, non-existence in front of him. Non-existent is what they use, something non-existent in front of him. He regards them as nothing, as an unreality. So that's confusing. Why not just leave it as it was? Why put something? That just by putting something instead of nothing, even though non-existent is there, it makes people think they have opportunity to stand in front of the Most High and get favor. Who did Hamashiach come for? He came for the 12 tribes of Israel, right? Let's go to Matthew 15 and 21. Look at what it says here. Then Yahushua went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. Notice it mentions Tyre. They are the same nation that was mentioned in Psalms 83. Notice this is going on during the time of Hamashiach. Now, when you read Joel chapter 3, it talks about those of Tyre who sold us to the Grecians. So this is going in line with prophecy. So there were people dwelling in Tyre at this time. Some were Israelites, some were Hamitic people, and some were Greeks and Romans who were Edomites. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O power, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word, and his disciples came up beside him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us now. But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So who was he sent to? Okay, we know that he healed her daughter because of her faith. But who does he say that he was sent to? He said that he was sent to the 12 tribes of Israel who were lost sheep. Being lost means that you lost your way, that you don't know who you are. So this is who Yahushua came for, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The same as Amos chapter 3, verse 3. You only have I known all the families of the earth, the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Let's go to 2nd Ezra again. 2nd Ezra chapter 8. And it says in 2nd Ezra, look at this, 2nd Ezra chapter 8 says, And he answered me, saying, The Most High have made this world for many. So many nations he made this world for. But the world to come for few. Let's go to verse 3. Jump down to verse 3. There be many created, but few shall be saved. Who are the few? These are the Israelites. These are the chosen out of the Israelites. These are the elect of the Israelites who are going to be saved. See that? So all nations are nothing, but the Israelites are something. Look at Isaiah 14 and 1. Isaiah 14 and 1. For the Most High will have mercy on Jacob. Who is Jacob? The 12 tribes of Israel. And will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. Wait a minute. First, he sent us out into all nations where we were held captive. But he said he's going to send us back to the land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Most High for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were. We were captives. We went into slavery all over the world. Everybody knows this. Everyone knows about the slave trade. Every generation knows about this. All right? The people who are calling themselves Jews today did not go into captivity. We went into captivity. The Negroes and the indigenous Indians, we went into captivity. And they shall take them captives whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. So if we were sent into all nations and we were up under our oppressors who were nothing, the Most High said we will rule over our oppressors. See that? And it shall come to pass in the day that the Most High shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve. Today we are working our butts off. We can't leave nothing to the next generation. We try, but it's difficult to leave things for the next generation, right? Things always seem to come up, or the generation after that, or the generation after that, because we're in captivity. All right, they make laws so we can't get ahead. Capital gains tax and all other sorts of tax, feudal taxes, just so we can't get ahead. Let's look at one more. So these nations, these heathen nations, are nothing, right? Let's see if Queen Esther said anything about the nations being nothing. Let's go into the Apocrypha and let's look at the addition of Esther. Let's go to Esther chapter 14 and let's go to verse 5. It says, "From my youth up I have heard in the tribe of my family that thou, O power, tookest Israel from among all people, and our fathers from all their predecessors, for a perpetual inheritance. And thou hast performed whatsoever thou didst promise them. And now we have sinned before you, been punished. Therefore hast thou given us into the hands of our enemies." Even she knew she was given into the hands of our enemies. "Because we worship their gods. O power, thou art righteous. Nevertheless, it satisfied them not that we are in bitter captivity, but they have stricken hands with their idols, that they will abolish the thing that thou with thy mouth hast ordained, and destroy thine inheritance, and stop the mouth of them that praise you, and quench the glory of thy house and of thine altar, and open the mouths of the heathen to set forth the praises of the idols, and to magnify a fleshly king forever," like the Catholic Church. "O power, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing." Look at that. So she knew that the other nations, the heathens, were nothing. "O power, give not thy scepter unto them that be nothing, and let them not laugh at our fall, but turn their device upon themselves, and make him an example that have begun this against us." See that? So she knew that the other nations were ruling because of our fault. "Remember, O power, make thyself known in time of our affliction, and give me boldness, O King of the nations, and the Most High of all power. Give me eloquent speech in my mouth before the lion. Turn his heart to hate him that fighteth against us, that there may be an end of him, and of all that are like-minded to him. But deliver us with thine hand, and help me that are desolate, and which have no other help but you." See that? So we have to be just like Esther and ask for the Most High to come and help us, because she hated that kingdom called Persia. If you read on, she'll show you that she hated that kingdom and her husband, which was a king that was nothing. Drop down to verse 14. "But deliver us with thine hand, and help me that am desolate, and which have no other help but you. Thou knowest all things, O power. Thou knowest that I hate the glory of the unrighteous." She hated the kingdom that she was queen in. "And hate the bed of the uncircumcised." She hated the king that she was married to, Xerxes. "And of all the heathen," see that? "All the heathen who are nothing. Thou knowest my necessity, for I abhor the sign of my high estate." She hated being queen in that kingdom, "which is upon mine head in the days wherein I show myself, and that I hate it as a minstrel's rag, and that I wear it not when I am private by myself." She hated the whole kingdom of Persia. How about that? She knew she was reigning in a kingdom that was nothing, less than nothing, minus zero. See that? So with that, I hope you got something from that. But now, stay tuned. I'm going to show you who we are according to the scriptures and various authoritative books that were written way, way, way back. A long, long time ago. So to show you who are the somethings and who are the nothings, because the scriptures talked about that all nations are as nothing standing before the Most High. But he favors Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. So let's find out, what does the 12 tribes of Israel look like? This is a book called Memorials of Gilbert Haven, Bishop of the Methodist Episcopal Church, edited by W.H. Daniels. Let's drop down to the publisher. Let's drop down to the published date, 1882. So this was a long time ago, over 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago. All right. Where were we over 100 plus years ago? Just getting out of slavery. So let's go to page 340, and let's drop down to this area. It reads, on page 340, it reads, "It is impossible, of course, to declare certainly the complexion of our Savior." So what is the color of our Savior? Our only guides are the people of the land where he lived. Right. So where did he live? He lived in Jerusalem. What were the people like during that time? What did they look like? Some fancy he was a white man. That's what they think today. But this could not be, except in violation of every law of race. So are they breaking laws? Yes, they are breaking the law of race. It does matter what he looks like, for truth's sake. The natives of Palestine, Jews and Arabs, except the few of the former imported from Germany, are of a brown complexion. See that? So those who are from that land were of a brown complexion, except the few of the former imported from Germany. But most of them were of a brown complexion. Well, who are these formers from Germany? Khazars. Almost the color of the bright brown mulatto. The woman of Nazareth, who still gather at the well of Annunciation, are of this dusky hue. The most beautiful lady we saw abroad, one of the loveliest we ever looked upon, was a brown Bethlehem Jewess who passed us at the tomb of Rachel on her donkey, who her brown bearded and turbaned lord and lover walking at her side. A perfect type of the Rachel and Jacob of 4,000 years before. Just such complexions may one see today in those who were but Southern or lately Southern slaves. A very comely and attractive Bedouin of a bright brown complexion went up the pyramids with us and stood under the Sphinx. When asked to come to America, he replied, "You will sell me." So what was this brown complexion? It was the so-called African Americans. It was the complexion of the African Americans. When asked to come to America, he replied, "You will sell me." No, it says, "We have been selling multitudes of his complexion for generations." So this man knew that they were selling people who looked like African Americans in the Americas. Dean Stanley describes Abraham as Bedouin chic, except in the faith, he says, in every aspect, the likeness is complex. In every aspect, the likeness is complete between the Bedouin chief of the present day and the Bedouin chief who came from Chaldea nearly 4,000 years ago. So he was dark. One of these aspects is complexion. One of these aspects is complexion. And the Arab of Palestine and the wilderness is very like Frederick Douglass in this particular. So Frederick Douglass is the look of these men, these people that were in Jerusalem during that time. And if all these people favor Frederick Douglass, who do you think Yahushua favored? Frederick Douglass. So it says, is very like Frederick Douglass in this particular. It reads, Abraham and his wife were both of the present wandering race. So Abraham looked just like Frederick Douglass too. Isaac's wife was of his parents' Mesopotamia origin. And so was Jacob's. Joseph was an Egyptian lady of color. Moses married an Ethiopian. Solomon married the Canaanite Rahab. Boaz, the brown Moabitess beauty, Ruth. David's Bathsheba was a Hittite, a wild slip of the land, very comely, but as far from white as from black. So of all these people that he listed here, all these women were dark, and the ancient Israelites looked like Frederick Douglass, what would their children look like? Just like Frederick Douglass or darker. Solomon had a swarthy daughter of Pharaoh to wife. The latter marriages were no lighter, and undoubtedly Mary was the likeness as well as lineage of David and Bathsheba, and Ruth and Rahab, and Rachel and Rebekah. Yahushua HaMashiach stood midway between the complexions of man, that he might lay his hand upon both and blend both together in himself. So Yahushua was a very dark man. Very, very dark man. But these people in that particular day of Palestine and Jerusalem and Arabia were dark people. So during those days, during that particular time when those people were in the land, they looked just like the African Americans today, who are here scattered through the Americas and throughout the four corners of the earth. This is what the Judeans look like. All right, here's another book called Wars of the Jews. All right, and this was copyrighted in 1990. Let's read the second paragraph here. It reads, many Jews escaped to lands like Ethiopia, Morocco, and Persia. In these far-flung corners were fierce and independent Israelite clans that would continue to resist the Byzantine and the Muslim Arab successors. In these Israelite communities, the old spirit of the Maccabees and Zealots remained a burning ember. The bigoted emperor Heraclius persecuted the remaining Jews of Palestine, killing all who failed to escape into Egypt or hide in the mountains and caves. So that tells you right there that after 70 AD, going down the line to the 600s AD, we were still being persecuted. It says Heraclius renewed the edicts of Hadrian and Constantine, banning the Jews from Jerusalem and its environs. So we were cast out of Jerusalem. Just like Deuteronomy chapter 29 And verse 30 says, we were cast out. 7 years later, the forecast of the Herculean astrologer was proven correct, and the holy city was conquered by a circumcised people, the Arabs. Some Jews returned to Jerusalem to witness the triumph of the Muslims over their Byzantine enemies, and even to aid in their victory. The Semitic cousins of Israel were now to emerge triumphant through the Middle East. They drove the Byzantine from Syria and Egypt and pushed deep into Anatolia. This is why you had a lot of black Jews in Anatolia, and destroyed forever the might of ancient Zoroastrian Persia. They would soon stretch their rule across North Africa to Spain. From Persia, they would penetrate as far as India. So we kind of rode on the Muslim skirt tail, reconquering the areas that we dwelled in prior to the Christians coming in and destroying the place, and Muslims. And notice what it says about the Arabs here. It says, Shimon bar Yochai, 500 years earlier, had prophesied that Ishmael, the Arab people, would sweep away Edom, Christian Rome. So even here it's calling Edom Christianity, or the Roman Catholic Church. It reads, the Jewish gains in this change of power would be dubious. However, the pivotal year of 628 brought liberation to the Afro-Asian Jews. This is telling you that the Jews were Afro-Asians, meaning they were what? Negroes. From the Christian oppressor, yet the reign of Muhammad would squelch for centuries the dream of Jewish independence in the Middle East. The same held true for Christian communities of the region, such as the Copts of Egypt, who were black, the Maroonites and Melkites of Lebanon, who were also a people of dark hue, black, the Jacobites of Syria, who were also black, and the Nestorians, or the Nestorians, and Assyrians and Chaldeans of Iraq, who were also black. They experienced deliverance from Greek Orthodox oppression, but gave up any hope of independence under Arab rule. So they gave up their independence of hope under the Arab rule, which meant what? That a lot of Jews were crypto Jews. They were claiming to be Arabs when they weren't. They were claiming a religion that was not their heritage, just for survival reasons. It reads, the dominion of Ishmael differed greatly from that of Edom, as the Arabs held territory with indigenous, often newly converted peoples. Arab conquests weren't and the newly converted peoples were the Jews. Arab conquests weren't solidified by more garrisons of Muslims or repopulated with colonists from other vassal states. The Romans were susceptible to Jewish uprisings in the cornerstone province of their empire because their seat of power was across the Mediterranean. Mecca was not the centralized political or military capital of Islam. At that time, there was no Mecca. So they were still gathering people to follow Islam. And a lot of people truly wasn't following Islam. They were doing it for survival reasons. It was either run into the bear or run into the lion, meaning run into Islam or run to the Roman Catholic Church. Double-edged sword. Various caliphs drove Islam with them as they pushed ever outward from their Arabian heartland, converting or destroying the vanquished locals. Caesar wanted taxes, but Muhammad wanted souls. So this is how a lot of our people end up becoming Islamic in order to stay alive, to keep their families thriving. They bowed the knee to Islam, which was a pagan religion. Let's go to this page. Going back to the book of War of the Jews. And I just want to show you this. This is something that they have in here that I found pretty interesting. This is dealing with the overview of biblical warfare. Isaiah 59:17 is what it starts out with. It describes the Lord as arming himself for his people with righteousness, as a coat of mail, and salvation as a helmet. It is clear from the parallelism existing between the two halves of the verse, righteousness, vengeance, salvation, and zeal, that the passage means that God arises with punishment for the enemy and deliverance for his people. I said God because I'm reading verbatim. The helmet of salvation is the helmet of the Lord's deliverance. So this is a Rastafarian song. Some of y'all may have heard this song before by Max Romeo and the Upsettlers. I believe it's the Upsetters in 1976. A real popular song. Well, this is where he got it from, Isaiah 59. And this is just a mimic of the song. It says, gonna put on me coat of mail, drive the devil back to hell, gonna take up me sword and shield, drive the devil from the world. Now check this out. These Rasta lyrics show that the concept of the righteous man arming himself to fight for salvation is still alive among some mystics. The Rastafarians are a Jamaican-based religion of black Jews. So in 1976, these brothers knew that they were Jews. This is that attempt to maintain the traditions of the Ethiopian Jewry. See that? So this truth has been around a long time. I mean, we could go back to the 20s. We could even go into the 1800s. We could go all the way back to Yahweh Shai, all right, to prove who we are. We could go all the way back to Egypt to prove who we are. This is something that they can't do, but we can. Our heritage is all through the Bible, through the prophecies, through the blessings and the curses. This is how we know who we are. And we are something when they are nothing. And the truth of it is, they know it. That's the truth of it. They know that we are the Israelites. And they want to keep this truth away from us as long as possible. Let's check out this book before we close out. This is called, this is by Allison Blakely, Russia and the Negro, Blacks in Russia, History and Thought. Let's go to page 11. Page 11. And let's start here. It says, based on the author's personal research in Abkhazia, the book's main purpose is to illustrate that Russians have had contacts with African peoples. In relating the story of the Abkhazian Negroes, she accepts the interpretation of Vradi and the other Russian scholars, and adds that the presence of Africans there should not be surprising since, starting from ancient times, slave trading colonies have been established on the Black Sea, alternately by the Greeks, Romans, and Arabs, Genoese, and Turks. She notes that the Tsarist officials frequently listed the Negroes as Arabs and Jews. See that? So who were we? Jews. Some of us were Arabs because we converted from being Jews to Arabs due to them conquering us. This book is called The Itinerary of Ludovica di Varthema of Bologna from 1502 to 1508 as translated from the original Italian edition of 1510 by John Winter Jones, FSA, in 1863 for the Halkett Society, with the discourse on Varthema and his travels in Southern Asia. All right, so this book was published and rewritten from Italian to English in 1928 by the Organist Press, but it was originally written in 1502, 1508. So we're going to go to page 33, and we're going to jump down to the second paragraph. So this is the journeys, right? And it reads, 12 days march from Damascus, but apparently 15 en route, including the stop at Al-Mazarib. The caravan reached a valley, probably the pass known as Aqabat Ashi-Shami, on the Hajj route. Alright, so let's drop down to this area where it says the caravan. The caravan wandered on for another 8 days, and by May 7th, it may be presumed it found a mountain which appeared to be 10 or 12 miles in circumference, in which mountain there dwell 4 or 5,000 Jews, who were clad in color and colored like Bedouin Arabs, so they were dark brown. They called them Badawi, and are described as being possessed of a fanatical hatred of all Arabs. So were they Arabs? No, they were not Arabs. They were Judeans, and they were black people. They were considered what we call so-called black people, right? Different shades of brown, just like the African Americans. And they had reason. Their habitation was the Kalbar oasis to the north of Medina, and its name is said to be taken from a Hebrew word, kabar, a castle. The Israelite inhabitants noted by Varthema were probably originally refugees from the north in consequence of the many persecutions they met with at the hands of enemies of all kinds, just like Deuteronomy 28 says that we will have enemies of all nations. They are first heard of in AD 568. So this is taking the history all the way back to 568 AD. And are mentioned by Abu Faraq Ali in his Agani, or songs, in the 10th century. So from 568 AD to the 10th century, which is 900 AD, they were reduced to great poverty in Muhammad in 628 and driven out by the Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, but they were back again by 1173. So this is something similar that we read about in Wars of the Jews. How they were reduced to being Arabs when they were actually Jews. They converted. It says, when Benjamin of Tudela found a colony of them, but Pergodart in the early 19th century, and afterwards Burton reported them as having entirely disappeared. So this is why you don't see any of us in the Holy Land today. Now you see some of us there, like in Dimona and some of the other surrounding cities. But for the most part, this is why you don't see us in these areas. When they're filming their cameras all around Jerusalem, we don't see ourselves over there because we have been out of that land for a long time. Varthema's statement about them as numbering 4,000 or 5,000 in 1503, even if exaggerated, is therefore of some historical importance. Of course it is. This is making a significant difference today as we speak, seeing this history in this book, showing us that we were in the Holy Land during those days and even pushed out of the Holy Land and forced to convert into other religions like the Roman Catholic Church, their Christianity, and Islam. So there you have it. Now you know who are the somethings versus the nothings. The somethings are those who were taken into captivity to the four corners of the earth. They are the somethings, those who are at a low state. Those are the Israelites that the Bible speaks of. Those who are nothing are ruling the nations. They are nothing, according to the Most High. I hope this was beneficial to you.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.